Serious. People of Reddit that believe in the paranormal, ghosts, demons, angels, etc. What exactly happened to make you start believing? I had always believed in them, but it was not until moving to Hawaii did it really cement it in my mind. Before that, it was always a feeling. For example, to this day I cannot stand being in Andersonville, Georgia. And I have a good amount of family buried there, so we visit quite often, but it's so unbearably uncomfortable. No matter where you walk, you are walking over the bodies of people who suffered horribly in a POW camp. When we moved to Hawaii though, that was another level. Fort Island was terrifying. Black figures moving around, dogs going crazy for no reason, people going crazy for no reason. The screams. I only heard a scream once, but I will never forget it. There are no foxes or coyotes to explain the noises. I was not the only one to hear or see these things. I was with a group of 4 people when we saw the silhouette in the dark and when we heard the scream from an abandoned and boarded-up building. Finally, one night I was in bed sleeping, but I had woken up randomly. I felt this heavy pressure in my chest. I got up in a panic and for just a split second, I saw the face of my neighbor. I ran to my parents' room and woke them up telling them someone was in my room. No one was there, of course. The next morning, I did not see my neighbor outside. He always said hello to me. He was a nice old man who lived with daughter's family. It wasn't until I got home from school did I learn he had passed away in his sleep overnight. I don't know what any of it meant or means, but I refused to sleep in my room for a long time after that. Another experience similar, being woken up by someone choking me, but they were not there after, caused such a fright that I did not sleep in an actual bed until I went to college. That was about 6 years of refusing to sleep in a bed and sleeping on the floor because I had it so ingrained in my head that I would continue seeing ghosts or spirits. Obviously, I sleep in a bed now, but it still startles me if someone stays the night and I wake up and see another person. Maybe those incidents were my young brain coping with things, or maybe I am just nuts, but it's going to take a lot to convince me that those spirits on Fort Island and in the mountains are just overactive imagination. 2 to 3 years ago when I was 25, I moved in with a friend into a house that was built in the early 1700s. The house gave off seriously creepy vibes. Everyone that came to the house said the same thing. The first week sleeping there, I woke up in the middle of the night to something staring at me. Really dark figure in the corner of the room. I quickly reached to grab my handgun for defense, and as soon I look back, the figure is gone. I chalk it up to me just seeing things. There were bird skeletons in the attic. If we cleaned them, there would be new ones that showed up. In the basement, it was just a dirt floor and 2 or 3 jars that had an odd-looking liquid and some object in it. We could not make out what was in there. Anyways, one night, I had what seemed like a night terror. I never have nightmares or anything of the sort. This one night, I see a large figure in all black standing at the foot of my bed. As I'm about to wake up my GF, this figure stretches, not sure how to describe it, over the bed and meets me face to face, with his feet still planted at the foot of the bed. This thing grew. I was not able to see its face, just ultra blackness. I tried to scream for help but couldn't. Next thing I know, my GF is shaking me awake and she said I was screaming, "No. No. No." over and over again. Had trouble sleeping that night, but everything felt normal. Here's where it gets weird. My other roommate, who I never saw due to our schedules, who slept down the hall, had a very similar night terror that same night. Instead, when his GF tried to wake him, the figure ran into the closet in their room. Now I never told anyone about the actual dream and neither did he. We were talking about how creepy the house feels when he told me about his experience. Too much of a coincidence in my opinion. When I worked as a nurse assistant, I had to companion care, stay with the patient for the duration of the shift, an old guy who had gone ballistic, attacking nurses, imaginary beings, as he was coming down from a general anesthesia. Eventually I was able to explain to and reason with him that the creatures, etc. he was seeing were the side effects of the GA. A few days later, he had completely calmed down and we were just having a normal conversation when he stopped dead and was staring at the wall as if he'd seen a ghost. He then says something like, "My name, I know I'm probably seeing things, but can you just convince me there isn't a creature on the wall over there?" Naturally, I looked at a blank wall and reassured him there was nothing there and tried to redirect the conversation. A minute or so later he insisted, "No, my name, I'm sure there's something on that wall." At this point, I got up and walked over to the wall, then starting from one end, ran my hand along the wall and looked back and said, "See, patient, there's nothing the." I was about two-thirds of the way across the wall when the hairs of the back of my head and neck shot up, and it genuinely felt as though something crawled along my hand. Without breaking stride, I kept going to the end and finished, "See, nothing." Still not convinced, he pointed to the exact spot the creature was, and I kid you not, he pointed to the exact spot I felt the thing. When I was a little girl, about 3 or 4, we lived with my dad's friend in his large house. I vividly remember seeing a man smile at me and stare at me. My dad always tried to find him, but I don't think he quite believed me that I saw someone. I had given the guy a nickname, Happy James, that I never told anyone. Well, years after we moved out, Dad's friend married and had 2 kids. They needed a sitter, and I was 15 at the time. I went to stay overnight to babysit. Around the middle of the night, I heard one of the kids whimpering from her room. I went in and asked her what was wrong, and she said, "He keeps staring at me. He's smiling." I kind of froze and said, "What?" That's when her brother said, "Happy James won't leave her alone. We normally light a candle at the end of the hall, and he'll leave and hang out by the candle." I never told anyone my nickname for him. Needless to say, I didn't stay the full night. I noped right out of there. When I was young, 4th grade, I shared a room with my younger sister, and we had bed tents, just what it sounds like, a tent made to fit over your bed. I woke up in the middle of the night, and there was an opaque, fully formed gray arm, slowly coming through the tent wall. I thought I was dreaming. I laid there as it slowly crept in. When it got close to my face, I realized I wasn't dreaming, and I yelled for my sister to wake up. As soon as she said something, the arm immediately moved out, but when her voice stopped, it would creep back in. I didn't want to scare her, so I didn't let on that I was freaking out. She could turn off and on the lights from within her tent, so I asked her if she would turn on the lights, thinking that would make it go away. But it didn't, it kept creeping in whenever her voice stopped. I didn't really know what to do beyond keeping her talking. Finally, I convinced her to count to 100, and I guess we both fell asleep, which is very surprising considering how panicky I was feeling. When I spent the night for the first time at my junior high best friend's house, I remember we stayed up all night playing Skyrim, and then right before we went to bed, he said, "Oh, by the way, put a pillow over your feet so nobody grabs them." I was bewildered. He ended up telling me that basically his house was haunted and something liked to grab his feet at night. After that, I thought he fell asleep, so we stopped talking, and from his living room, I heard what sounded like a hall full of people walking around and feet scuffling the floor and all kinds of voices making conversation, but I couldn't make out what they were talking about. I went to wake up my friend, but he just said, "Yeah, I hear it too, it happens pretty much every night." I had no explanation for it whatsoever. Everyone in the house was asleep but us. It didn't sound like a TV that got left on, it sounded like a real-life audience of people conversing and moving around. To this day, I wonder about it so much. Between what I experienced and the stories he told me of other things that occurred in the house, I was pretty spooked. I work security at an art museum. The oldest part of the museum was built in the 1920s and has a lot of Georgian and up furniture and paintings, including a few rooms that were physically transplanted from colonial mansions in the area. Pretty much everyone who's been there long enough has a personal ghost story. People have seen orbs on cameras, the figure of a guard who had a heart attack on the premises, etc., etc. My personal experience comes from the old wing, which half the night shift crew refuses to touch when they do their tours. You feel watched, walking through at night. The museum will occasionally host big galas and events after the normal operating hours. I'd been working there a month or two and was posted at the front of the entrance to one of the galleries for such a high society event. We were on the floor an hour before the guests arrived and were generally tooling around while the event staff set up tables and stuff. I was butter roboting with another guard when a supervisor appeared, so naturally we scattered like roaches. I turn around and swear I see a woman in a red dress walk around the corner. Naturally, my first thought is, guests aren't supposed to be on the floor yet, and I walked back to do something about it. I walk back there, round the same corner, and see 2 other guards chatting in the next room, who naturally didn't see a thing. The house I grew up in, from age 3 and lived in off and on again after college until age 27, is a 2-story Victorian style and was built in the late 1800s and has quite a history. I experienced quite a few things in that house growing up over the years that have led me to believe in the paranormal. I remember when I was 4 or 5 waking up one night on the couch after falling asleep in our den with the TV on and looking over in the corner of the room and seeing some demon humanoid form that was 2 or 3 feet tall with fangs and long ears. We stared at each other for a while before it scurried off out of the room and I heard it run down the hall. I was petrified and stayed huddled on the couch the rest of the night. Another time, I woke up in the middle of the night and looked out my bedroom door into this same hall and saw the most sinister red eyes looking back at me through the air return vent in the hallway wall. On multiple occasions while home alone as a teenager, I'd be in the back downstairs area and hear a commotion up front, only to discover all the candles knocked off the fireplace mantle in 3 of the front rooms, but everything else having remained in place. In my early 20s, my girlfriend and I moved back into the upstairs. It had only been my mom living there alone for years. One day, I'm helping out downstairs and I hear my girlfriend call out to me, so I come up the back stairs and ask her what she wanted. She jumps, turns around and turns pale white before running out of the house. I go outside to ask her what happened, and she said she saw me walk into our room on the opposite side of the hallway from where I'd come upstairs. She wouldn't come back in after that and stayed at her sister's house. All my friends were afraid to come over growing up. You'd hear people walking around upstairs and doors closing when everyone was downstairs in the back area of the house. I also got the feeling like something was watching me from the top of the stars when I'd go down the back stairwell. In my early mid-20s, before the movie Inception came out, I had an Inception-style dream within a dream, within a dream, within a dream, within a dream. All the dreams took place within the house but were during different time periods, and in each, I was having conversations with prior residents of the home. It was very disconcerting when I woke up, as it felt like I was still dreaming. That house gives me the heebie-jeebies still to this day. My parents live there still for over 30 years now, and we are the second longest family to have stayed in the house.